Hi,
Hi,
everybody,
everybody,
and
and
welcome to
welcome to
the 24/9
Sky
Sky News.
News. Sorry
Reverb,
about the
Marshall,
reverb.
myself
Marshall
have been trying
to get this fixed, but apparently
someone's in
someone's in
here
here
who's not
who's not
supposed
supposed
to,
to.
but when
Marshall
Marshall
talks
talks,
to
it'll
me
be
crystal clear, okay? Marshall
Marshall
Masters,
Masters,
a
a
former
former
CNN
CNN science features,
features
news
news
producer, freelance writer, television analysis, and the public Yowza.com since 1999. Searching Earth changes and Nibiru, I like to call it Planet X, flyby related topics such as sustainable survival communities, catastrophic crop circles, impact events, and future technologies. I love this guy. I'm very proud to call him my friend, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marshall Masters.
Hey, Jay.
How are you?
All right. It's good to be back.
How are you?
And how's things in your end of the world?
Crazy.
Yeah, that seems to be the way things are going. I'll tell you one thing. I'm glad I'm not living in Naples, Italy. Yeah, they've got a huge super volcano system underneath them that is starting to wake up. And Vesuvius is part of that system. And it's mostly offshore. But, you know, if it pops, hundreds of thousands of people can die. And it's, you know, they're saying it takes a long time for it to happen. Well, there's a lot of long time things happening real quick lately these days. Ring of Fire is really popping off. We're seeing, I'm monitoring things. I mean, right now, the last thing I did was in my science video in last year, and in that, what I'm doing is I am forecasting that we are going to have a Super Bolide event first quarter of this year. And the interesting thing, Jay, is that I just got in the data for December, and man, it just keeps, you know, the bad news just keeps coming. The data that we saw was through the month of November, and everything is just upticking. It has been for the last 3 years. Actually, what we show, if you the video is signs number 13, meteor warning for first quarter 2017. And so what I really wanted to do with this was I like to give people news they can use, and as opposed to straight validation reporting. And what I call validation reporting is, look at this, look at that, 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 look at that, look at this, look at this, look at that. And it goes on. And you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like a Facebook addiction. And, you know, now they're finding out that people spend all day on Facebook wind up more depressed than not. So I'm going, hey, you know, if you know bad news is coming, why fixate on it? You know, I mean, Planet X to me is like Amtrak. It'll get here when it gets here, but it'll get here. Okay. And in the meantime, it's preparing yourself for what's going to come mentally and being aware of key signs. And you know, what I do in the video is I actually, as I was looking at fireball and meteor reporting, the hard thing I think for a lot of people is if they're trying to self-educate themselves. You know, you look at the definitions for what is a meteor, what is an asteroid, what is this, what is that. And like Harry Truman said about economists, if you took all these science sites and laid them end to end, they'd point in every direction. And so what I decided to do with this was not only present the statistical data about a impending super bolide event first quarter of this year, particularly in the month of February. But I also wanted to give the viewers a lexicon of basic terminology so that they could, when they're going through news reports, they could sort through the things that they need to red flag and things that are not a huge concern. And when we're talking about shooting stars, fireballs, bolides, super bolides, these are all meteors.
Marshall, excuse me one second, Marshall.
Sure.
Speak of bolide.
I'm sorry, your audio's not good. Could you repeat that, Jay?
Okay, when you're speaking of bolides, do you mean events like occurred over Russia a few years ago?
The event that occurred over Russia, and actually I talk about this extensively in my video. And again, for your listeners, and that's signs number 13, meteor warning for first quarter 2017. Just go to my site, yowusa.com or marshallmasters.com, and you'll find it. Just scroll on down and watch that. A super bolide is different from a bolide. Bolides, whether it's a regular bolide or a super bolide, are differed from fireballs because a bolide will have a detonation event. And a super bolide is one that is going to have, once it gets from, a bolide is going to detonate, you'll see it. But if a super bolide detonates, you're going to have shock wave, sound, bright flash, and so forth. Now, the Chelyabinsk, which happened in February 15th, 2013, was a super bolide event. When it detonated over Chelyabinsk, or actually it detonated beyond Chelyabinsk over an unpopulated region, which was fortunate for them because it was what I call a 30-30 event. It released as much energy as 30 Hiroshima atomic bombs, and when it detonated, it was momentarily 30 times brighter than the sun. 1,500 people were injured primarily from flying glass. They were standing at their windows looking at this, and the shock wave blew the glass into their face. But also a lot of people, because of the bright flash, had burns on their bodies and retinal burns. And so out of 1,500 people, you really got to wonder how many people were actually blinded in one or both eyes during this event. And so that is a particular concern. And that's the thing I'm worried about, is that in the first quarter of this year, the statistical trend data that we're following is indicating that we're at a high risk of another super bolide event. Now, Chelyabinsk did not happen directly over a city. But imagine if a Chelyabinsk meteor, which was 17 meters in diameter, okay, so this thing was a pretty good sized rock. And let's imagine you have a 17-meter wide super bolide detonating directly above New York, London, Paris, Rome. Now you're going to have a whole nother kind of disaster scenario, one where there could be substantial and major loss of life. And what we did was we've been tracking trends, and we started this with an article that we wrote back in 2015. J.P. Jones did it, and because we were following the work of another Planet X researcher who was trying to figure out the calendaring mix-up, because when people follow Zecharia Sitchin's 3,600-year orbit, they seem to, they can't get the dots to connect. And then what happened is, we were reading the book, The Lost Book of Enki by Sitchin, which is the autobiography of Lord Enki of the Anunnaki, who is the creator of our species. If you read the book, it literally says we came from the man's loins. And, not because he was a particularly noble guy. He would just look at Earth girls and say, I want to get me some of that. And boom, here we are. And if you read that, it reads more like Game of Thrones with horny aliens and spaceships. And still the same, though, in there, it says that the very first calendar ever created for our planet was created by Lord Enki, and it was a lunar calendar. And it had 2 seasons, summer and winter. And so when you look back historically, lunar calendars are the predominant way of measuring time. And the Gregorian calendar that we use today is really a political mashup invented by the church. And that's the reason why we have leap years and we got to recalculate, and, holidays don't fall on the same days and things like that, because it's a mishmash calendar. However, when we went back and we said, okay, 3,600 Gregorian years or 3,600 lunar years, and because Sitchin was translating the Sumerian text, we said lunar years, and the minute we did that, correlated it with Gregorian calendar, then all of a sudden events just snapped into place. Click, 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 click. But at the same time, we began wondering, well, since we're doing this calendar stuff, lunar versus Gregorian, what about Mayan calendar? Because that's the most precise calendar ever created by man. And I can remember, back in the lead up to 2012, and there was all the hullabaloo about, like the movies, golly gee, all the cable programs, 2012 programs. And I even, back in August of 2012, I was interviewed by National Geographic, and the producer asked me, he said, do you see a direct correlation between December 21, 2012 and Planet X? And at the time I said, no, I don't see any correlation. And then he said, well, what are you going to be doing on December 21, 2012? And I said, well, I'm going to make coffee. And I take my coffee real seriously. And so he didn't like either of those answers, and I didn't get that big of a piece on the eventual production. But in retrospect, when I said there was no correlation between Planet X and the Mayan calendar, I was absolutely wrong for the right reasons. Reason why I said I didn't see a correlation was there was no data to substantiate that. I don't, interpreting the Bible or talking to Zeta aliens or whatever. I mean, who can duplicate those methods? I always like to find things that my audience can say, fine, I'm going to take what Marshall says and I'm going to vet it. I'm going to go back to his source and see how he came to his conclusions. And that's more the scientific method. And well, so,
Marshall,
if need to ask you a question, if you put your mic off, I don't get so much feedback. And now go ahead. I just wanted to interject this.
Okay. And so, well, now I know why you're so cooperative. And but anyway, this line of reasoning took us to revisiting December 21, 2012. Yeah, and also I feel sorry for all the people that were mocked and ridiculed, and they're having friends and family going, there you go again, all that nonsense. And it's a personal hot button for me because I did work in Y2K mitigation in the 90s, and I can tell you Y2K was a Titanic didn't hit the berg. And if they had actually revealed what the real crisis was all about, that insiders like me knew, I was doing Y2K stuff for Hewlett Packard, it would have crashed the stock market. So, yeah, and then you have guys like Bill O'Reilly off with their heads. And I hate that kind of mockery after a non-event. So that gives me kind of a motive to look. And JP Jones and I sat down and said, all right, let's view December 21, 2012, Mayan prophecy. Is that date the harbinger or is it the event? Good prophecy will always have a harbinger, and then it will tell you what the event is. The relationship is the harbinger is a non-catastrophic event, something that is easily observed, recognized, and highly unique. And what the harbinger does is it tells you that you are on the timeline that is going to take you into that event so that you can do something about it. So like the biblical story of 7 lean cows and 7 fat cows, that kind of a thing. You know, what's the point of prophecies? It says the world's going to end on day, and then on that same day the world is ending, and you're going, yeah, see, I'm right, and you're dead. I mean, what's the point of it? So we said, all right, what Hollywood sold us was December 21, 2012 was the event. Was it the event or was it the harbinger? If it was the harbinger, then we will see something in the data, empirical data, information you can take to the bank following that date. We decided on 2 data sets, earthquakes of all magnitudes and fireballs. And what we saw was immediately after December 21, 2012, and this is in the video, you know, the data reminds me of Roadrunner Coyote cartoons I used to love watching as a kid, still do really. And you know how the coyote gets the Acme rocket, you know, and he sits there, lights a match, lights the fuse, takes off, and there he is riding that Acme rocket straight up, you know. And of course, as kids, we know he's going to get to the top, and then all of a sudden he's going to go down into a, you know, off of a cliff, and poof, and we're all going to have a good laugh. Well, we looked at the data, and Coyote's riding that Acme rocket, and he just keeps going up. He keeps going up. He keeps going up. And this started right after, within a month after December 21, 2012. And we saw the same pattern running up like this for both earthquakes of all magnitudes and fireball sightings. Now, on earthquakes, why did we do all magnitudes? It's because USGS over the years has been cooking the books. There are quakes that they do not report, but then, you know, think back, when was the last time you heard a report from USGS where they did not downgrade the event, where a 5.1 becomes a 4.9, you know, so forth. There you go. Good.
Cut your mic on.
Okay, I'll cut my mic.
Just a few days ago, Marshall, there was a 7.2 and they downgraded it. They downgrade everything unless it's like a 0.1. Everything.
Correct. Now, the reason why they're doing that, the reason why they're cooking the books is because, you know, and I get these disinformation operatives sending me emails. I don't even bother responding to it, you know. I mean, because these are fictitious people and they do this nonsense because that's how they pay their child support and buy vodka. And they're just disgusting people, losers. But what they'll do is they'll say, well, now all earthquakes of magnitude 5 or greater, typically is what they're doing, is downtrending. Yes, it's downtrending because you're cooking the books. It's manipulation of the data. So once we say earthquakes of all magnitude, then we bypass their manipulation for the most part. And so there we saw that huge increase. And we're also looking, we briefly looked at other data sets. Right now, volcano activity is just staggering all around the world. And the other one was fireballs. And that for me was the real important one. You know, both earthquakes are telling me that our planet is interacting with the sun, which is interacting with Nemesis that is approaching. And we're interacting in new ways. For example, last year, December, was an energy wave, a galactic wave that hit the planet. And there are a lot of people who are saying that the helium in that wave was generated by the Nemesis brown dwarf, because that's what brown dwarfs are going to generate, is winds of helium. And you know, you on the other hand, you have NASA going, now, where did it come from? Who is that masked man? And concurrent with that, you know, we're seeing another uptick in seismic and volcanic activity. So there's that relationship. You know, at the same time, I'm starting to get reports of people observing an object at the sun's 11 o'clock. And that is, and I'm having people that are observing it visually, and they're coming in and seeing that. So there's a lot of patterns that are happening, and everything pulled together, Jay, tells us that what we have is December 21, 2012 was a harbinger date. The Mayans were looking for a specific celestial alignment, namely our relationship of our system passing through the plane of our galaxy and through the heart, if you will, of the Milky Way. That came to pass. That alignment was visible, and that harbinger said, you know, whoa, Nelly, you're on for a ride. Bad times are coming. So we really believe, you know, the data tells us that the Mayan calendar is correct, Mayan calendar prophecy is correct, and that what we think about it is misdirection and disinformation by confusing us with the harbinger and the event by flipping the order or simply disregarding the harbinger altogether.
Okay. I've got a million questions to ask you today, Marshall, and I thank you so much for being here. I would like for you to explain and give us all the information that you could. For some reason, I've had this on my mind a lot here lately about the days of darkness, 3 days of darkness. I've looked up the biblical end of it. I've looked up everything, but I've had this feeling about the 3 days of darkness. All kind of things are going on this year we all know about anyway, okay? Could you tell us what Planet X may have connected with 3 days of darkness?
Oh, absolutely. Jay, I talk about the days of darkness extensively in my last 2 books, Being in It for the Species, where I really give a blow-by-blow account of what happens. And also I do that again in my most current book, Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, a Faith-Based Leadership Guide. My goal in doing this is there's going to be an order of events that occurs during the tribulation. And what we all need to understand is the universe is not unfolding at the speed of human expectations. Yeah, we'd all like to know that the world's going to end, sometime around when my next credit card statement is coming. That way we know, oh, that's it. Run to Costco and clean up, buy it all. And it doesn't work that way. The sequence of events will remain unchanged. When they actually happen will depend on the timeline, and our timeline has shifted. It's called the Mandela effect, and when people first brought this to my attention, I just, back then I'm going, I don't know, but then you start looking for things, and folks like us, we're silverbacks, and so we got a memory of things. I remember as a kid, Curious George had a tail. He doesn't have a tail anymore. I was going through the store, went through the laundry section, and OxyClean, when I was a kid, was OXYCLEAN. Now it's OXI. And I definitely remember OXY. And those were just a few of the things. I started noticing quite a few of them. And so there are subtle differences, and I believe that we have shifted on our timeline. By whom and by how, that's speculation. But just from what I see in my own physical evidence in the world, we definitely shifted. That changes the timing, but the sequence will remain the same. Now, this being said, the days of darkness. And I find this is interesting because now I'm starting to have people have been reporting dreams, visions, and premonitions to me for well over 12 years. And it's always been impact events, earthquakes, tsunamis, those things. I am now having days of darkness reports. People are seeing days of darkness. Now, what I explain that as in my books, Being in It for the Species and Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, is days of darkness are going to happen when this will be after the Planet X system has reached its point of perihelion, its closest distance to the sun, and then starts arcing over our heads. And when Nemesis reaches the ecliptic, which is the plane of our solar system, just imagine the sun's equator and just stretch it all the way out to the 12 constellations of the zodiac. That's the ecliptic. We're inclined to our axis of tilt. So what we see on the horizon is like this, but the rest of the universe is like this. And you can't do this when you're, okay, where is it? Where is it? You got to have your head straight up. Means you got to be on the ecliptic. And so Nemesis on its downward leg, all right, as it's going back out of the solar system, when it's still in our northern sky, and the northern sky is above the ecliptic, it's going to cross over our heads, and then it will, when it reaches the ecliptic, it'll be somewhere between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. And however, its outermost planet, Nibiru, which is, anywhere, depending on how people calculate it, anywhere from 4 to 10 times as the size of the Earth. I believe in my books we say about 6 times the size of the Earth. But big is big. What will happen for the days of darkness is we're going to be going counterclockwise around the sun, but the Planet X system is in a clockwise orbit. And this is something that Zacharias Sitchin said, Carlos Muñoz Ferrada, the Chilean astronomer, said, and also this was something that Robert H. Harrington said. So this is pretty consistent that it's in a clockwise orbit. So we're going this way, it's coming this way. where, you know, like ships passing in the night. And as that happens, as Nemesis reaches the ecliptic, the planet then is going to pass directly between us and the sun. Now, in August of last year, Ed Dames had his Swan Song farewell seminar, and he did it on Planet X. And, you know, people have been asking him forever about it, and he would never say anything. However, I have one of his videos from 2004, his original, very first kill shot video. And he stayed consistent with what he reported in 2004, and that what they remote viewed was a large planet passing between the Earth and the Sun, and that there would be days of darkness, and at that time would be a kill shot event, which would be a solar sprite or cosmic lightning. And as I point out in my last update video, you know, people say we're told that the Grand Canyon was created by water erosion, and you know, that's one of those. Does that work for me? You know, you sniff around that explanation, and it just kind of, I don't know about that. You know, is it starting to turn a little bit? You know, but so okay, let's let that turn. On the other hand, the largest canyon in our solar system is Val Marineris on Mars. That's one big honking thing. Now, are they going to tell us that water erosion caused Val Marineris? Okay. And no, it didn't. And so that's evidence of a, you know, solar sprite, basically sun lightning, if you think about it. And like on Earth, we have ground lightning, and ground lightning is 10 times more powerful than what we see coming down. You see lightning going up, that's the juicy stuff, you know, stay away from that. And so that's what we would have. The sun would just have cosmic lightning bolts, and the passage of Nibiru between us and the sun would set us up for, you know, an event, kind of like a bug zapper event. And, you know, when we have a total lunar eclipse, and I remember that's a total lunar eclipse is what actually launched my career in 1999. It was the Nostradamus King of Terror prophecy that a comet would appear during a full solar eclipse in that year, which was seen from Turkey. And I was, you know, monitoring the NASA video feed, and sure enough, I found the comet and got 5 million hits on that. And that's really what launched, you know, my story here. And you have a full solar, a lunar eclipse, you're going to see that, you know, umbral glow around the edge, the corona, okay? It's very beautiful. It's intriguing. I can see why people just tromp around the globe just to see that. And however, that's the moon. Now you're talking about an object that's between us and Venus, and that is, say, approximately 6 or 7 times the size of the Earth. That is just going to blot out the sun. We're not going to have that pretty little corona. We're just going to have pitch black, and it's going to last for a few days. But it's actually, as I illustrated in my books, and I give a very detailed illustration of what happens, because concurrently with the days of darkness, we're going to have a situation where our magnetosphere is collapsing, and that makes us highly susceptible. This is a period of time where what I say in my books is that, you know, if you're on the surface, you're going to become the proverbial poodle in the microwave. You don't want to do that. You got to go to ground. And you know, what I'm suggesting is you want to have at a bare minimum, about 8 feet of dirt over your head. And you know, 5 feet of dirt will protect you from an EMP pulse. But this is going to be solar radiation, and it's going to really be pounding us. And so what will happen is, as the Planet X system is crossing the ecliptic, you're going to have multiple objects. Nemesis, which is the brown dwarf, small sun, dirty sun, ugly. And then you're going to have the major planets in that system, and Helion and Arbota, and then Nibiru, the outermost major planet. They're minors as well, like we, you know, we have Ceres and things like that. So, and poor Pluto, he was demoted, you know.
Yes.
Still breaks my heart. Oh, poor Pluto. But what will happen is that you're going to have, it's not, the pole shift's not going to be the result of one object passing close to us. It's going to be multiple objects. Now, keep in mind tidal gravitational force. What a lot of people don't realize is that our own moon exerts more tidal gravitational force on us than the sun. If the moon disappeared right now, this instant, the entire surface of our planet would collapse 18 inches. And that would result in an extinction level event that would literally reduce us as a planet back to single cell animals. All right. So that's just the moon. Now you have an object that's many times the size of the Earth. But at the same time, it's, you know, in front of us we have Nibiru, and behind us we have Nemesis and these other objects in this mini constellation, this little solar system within a solar system, if you will. And they're going to combine to create what I call lithosphere lock. And it was actually a term that was coined by a British coal miner. And I thought he did a very brilliant job on it. And what happens with the lithosphere lock, the lithosphere is the outer shell of our planet. All right. And, you know, the mantle and above. When the lithosphere lock occurs, remember, we're going one direction and the Nemesis system is going the other direction. We're going counterclockwise, it's going clockwise. And so it's going to want to pull us in its direction. So during the days of darkness, we're going to have a spin down where the actual rotation of the Earth is going to slow until it comes to a complete stop. And at that point, our magnetosphere will be 1/10 of what it is right now. And that'll be a very dangerous time. But then as we continue, like ships passing in the night, we start spinning in the other direction. And when we come out of the days of darkness, then the sun will begin rising in the west, okay, and setting in the east. We're also looking at a pole shift event where we're going to have a crustal shift. And this is because the Nemesis system is going into the southern skies at a steep angle. And so it's pulling us that way as well. And so when it's grabbing the lithosphere, you know, people say, well, the Earth flips head over heels, you know. Magnetically, that'll happen. It's already beginning to happen, where North Pole will be South Pole. But if the lithosphere, if we have a crustal shift that is a complete flip, we're back to single cell animals again. Don't think about it. And that's not what Edgar Casey predicted or other prophets have predicted. Yeah, it's more along the lines of about a 10 to 13 degree shift. which means that, like places like Northern California are going to become more like Hawaii. And that's what it really means in terms of the eventual weather considerations. And the pole shift event, the last time we had a pole shift event was Noah's flood or the deluge. This is in the folklore of peoples and their written histories and oral histories all around the world. There's probably some estimate between 175 to 200 different deluge accounts. And the deluge is actually should be called the big slosh, because what happens is that when you have this, we're affecting the spin, crustal shift, these kind of movements, the water is still going to want to go the way it's going. Imagine you're in your car driving down the freeway and you don't have a seatbelt on and you get distracted. Next thing you know, pow, you plow into a bridge. Well, your car stops right there. Boom. You go through the windshield and you keep flying for 20, 30, 40 feet. Okay. They'll find you somewhere in the ditch all mashed up. Well, that's because, think about it, our bodies are 70% water. We're just going to keep moving. All right. Same difference with the earth. It's the earth can move or do something else, but then the water is going to slosh like water. Like, think of a milkmaid, walking back from the barn with a bucket full of milk, and she's swinging it, and the milk is sloshing out on both sides. And so that is what's going to happen, is we're going to have a slosh. And that's actually what's depicted in the movie 2012. All right. So it was, this is what we need to expect. And of course, people who are living near the coastlines are, it'll be an extinction event for them. And we're looking at, when this unfolds, loss of 90% of the population. Now, who is saying that 2017 is the year that the guacamole is going to hit the fan, as I like to say? Well, first off, in 2008 on Project Camelot, Carrie Cassidy does a good job. And she interviewed Bob Dean, whistleblower. I've actually had a chance to talk to the man myself, and I have deepest and warmest respect for him and his message. And in 2008, Carrie asked him, she said, when are we going to see this thing? When is it all going to happen? And he said, 2017, take it to the bank. Matt said that in 2008. And also in 2008, he said this would be a worst case scenario flyby, because when this system crosses the ecliptic on its downward leg, on its aphelion leg, that we will be on the same side of the sun. The last flyby was Exodus. And the reason why Exodus was not as catastrophic as what we're facing is that it was a best case scenario. Earth was on the opposite side of the sun when the Nemesis system, Planet X system, was crossing the ecliptic. So, there, for grace of God, go wait. But this time, dumb luck, we're on the same side of the sun, and it's going to be hellacious. Now, Bob Dean said that in 2008. In 2016, getting back to Major Ed Dames, he said that this is the year we see it. He said in 2017, and when we do, it'll be the size of the moon. When we look at it in the sky, it's going to be that large. And when he was asked about the pole shift, he said, I can't say for certain whether it will or will not happen, but if it does, he was saying about 13-degree crustal shift. And what was interesting was he really billed this event quite heavily, and it was Planet X and Other Mysteries. He spent about, I had several people that follow my work attended it, and I debriefed them afterwards, and it was a blind study, and they all said exactly the same things. And he only spent about 45 minutes talking about Planet X, and it was a Planet X event. But what he said in 45 minutes was powerful, because he corroborated about 80 to 90% of my work. And I have a lot of respect for him. I really felt that he possibly put his life in danger. He went off the reservation. And because, remember, we were talking before about the perihelion to ecliptic. The perihelion is closest distance to the sun. Ecliptic is along the sun's equator, if you will. And you have that transit between the 2 points. And when he initially talked about it, he said, it'll take 30, 40 years for the transit. So, this is something your grandchildren will have to worry about, Typical, nothing to see here, move along. And people who understood the celestial mechanics of what's going to happen, they were very suspicious of that. And he was, I think, what he was doing was he had a Faustian bargain that if he was going to talk about this, that he had to say something like this so that people would just go, okay, well, it's this is a problem for somebody else, not on my watch. If it happens to my kids or grandkids, well, they're smart, they'll figure it out. And me, I just keep going to Costco, and life's cool. I can watch the game on my big screen. And he came back in the afternoon, and he changed that around completely. And he just said, it would be a matter of months, not 30 years. And he said, this is what we have remote viewed. So you can believe what we've remote viewed, or you can believe what you want. And that's when he went off the reservation. And I really felt that he may have put his life in jeopardy. And I think what probably saved his bacon was that he retired from the field after that presentation. So by removing himself from the public stage, so to speak, I think they just let it pass. It was, it was a one-trick pony deal. And so there's, if they're going to retaliate against somebody who's got that much reputation, there could be more blowback from the retaliation than to just simply let it, trickle off and die away. But anyway, let me mute.
Okay. Before, I just don't want to let these questions in my mind get out on some things that you just said. Found that the Earth's rotation is slowing down. I mean, we're not all going to like your water and fly off of it right now, but it is slowing down. Okay. Also, our moon is getting farther away from us. Look, our inner core of Earth's a mess right now. Okay. Do you think any of these things that are happening right now are due to the system coming in? And also, with this year 2017, and a lot of people saying that this event may happen in 2017, when in 2017? And I know that's $1 million question. Nobody can really say for sure, but what would you say about that question? Go ahead.
Okay, I'm unmuted. All right. That was a twofer, but wait, there's more. Okay. Well, the thing here is that our planet is not responding directly to Nemesis. Our planet is responding to our sun, which in turn is responding to Nemesis. And it has been for some time. You know, a big reason for geoengineering spraying, chemtrail spraying, is to create global dimming, which is one of the reasons why temperatures are cooling when we're supposed to have global warming, and we have weather chaos. All right. All things being equal, we would be warmer right now all across the planet. And the geoengineering spraying, which is loading up the atmosphere with aluminum, is reflecting light back into space. And this is becoming a problem for astronomers as well. This is distorting their view of the skies. For us, the aluminum is killing the bees and giving us respiratory distress. And by 2013 or 2030, at the current rate, half of all infants born will be autistic. Autism rates are just skyrocketing because of the aluminum. So we're already in a very, very severe struggle. And we have this, essentially, it's untried terraforming. Or they're just terraforming the planet. And this is a huge experiment. And, you know, and we're going to die. We're suffering as a result of it. People are dying from this because these just massive amounts of chemicals they're spraying into the sky. And, you know, the interesting thing I find about it is that you can look up, see what they're doing. And how many people really look up? And how many of them want to believe what they're saying? Very few. Very, very few. You know, you ask most people, look up when you see a chemtrail jet passing overhead spraying, and you go, that's chemtrail. And they go, what? And they shrug it and go on their way, you know. So you have that. So we're already being affected in terms of the moon, you know. Well, that's just a natural feature of the orbit, that the moon is doing that. However, there have been a lot of people who've noticed that there's a tilt, that the moon isn't appearing as it used to, that, you know, there are differences in the viewing of the moon. And I think those are very well documented and profound. So we are responding. I can see just in the current volcanism and seismicity since late December, when we got hit with this energy wave, galactic wave, whatever you want to call it. It had helium in it, which many believe is a product of a brown dwarf star. So it's essentially, we're passing, if you will, through a bow wave of the Nemesis star. So we are already being affected. We don't understand it because the media is very good at suppressing things. There are massive crop failures happening right now worldwide. But as long as we can go to Costco and the shelves are full, who cares? You know, it's a moot point. You know, on the other hand, there will come a point when, in my mind, I can see people wheeling carts up and down the aisles at Costco and somebody screaming, "Oh my God, they're out of Tabasco. We're all going to die," you know. And, you know, by the time that happens, it's a little too late. And so, yeah, we're already feeling the effects. I believe that later this year, you know, the question being, and you're asking, when are we all going to see it? Well, I'm documenting this. We're already seeing, okay? You look at my Planet X system update number 4, and I post there where at the 3 o'clock position relative to the sun and the horizon, we have multiple sightings of PX objects in the same location and in different parts of the globe and at altitude from commercial jets. And I present all of that. And it's a 3-parter. And, you know, That's the one part of that's the second part of that series, and it's the least popular. Yeah, I mean, people, you say, when are you going to see it? They're not interested in seeing it. And I hear people all the time go, well, when am I going to see it with my own two eyes? And I have been criticized for saying, if you ask that question, you're stupid and you deserve to die. And people really, they get incensed, What do you mean I'm stupid and I deserve to die? Well, it's because if you're doing that and you say, when am I going to see it with my own two eyes? When you do see it, the first thing you're going to do is turn on Fox, CNN, MSNBC, or any of the corporatist media outlets, because you're not going to trust yourself to figure it out on your own. And their talking heads are going to tell you, it's just going to be an interesting celestial show. Don't worry about it. Stay calm. And people are going to go, okie dokie. I'm not going to do anything about it. And they're going to do that because that's what they want to hear. That's what they want to believe. And, it reminds me, we'll see, kind of reminds me of a scenario that, a housewife is doing laundry and she finds 5 shades of lipstick on her husband's white shirt collar. And she confronts him with it, and he says, don't worry, honey, it's the same woman. She just uses different lipstick all the time. And, excuse me, and it's over. You're the only love of my life. And she goes, okie dokie. That's it. She just, she doesn't want to hear, I'm out there like a dog, in the heat. She wants to hear it, no problem. And, I would dare say, how many women would actually do that? But 80% of the population is going to do that. 80% of the population is going to go, okie dokie, I wanted you to lie to me. And when that happens, that is going to be your harbinger sign that this will be the last window of opportunity to get yourself into a survivable situation. That's it. That's your last harbinger. Now, when they come back with the same official talking heads and they go, well, we've had all of these meteor and asteroid events and blah, blah this and blah, blah that. And we didn't really factor all that in or properly calculate it, but we've updated our models, and our modeling tells us that, it's going to be a little bumpy, but it's nothing we can't get through if we just pull together and stay calm. When you hear that, then right after that is going to come the dying. Okay. So that's the window of event that you're looking for, is what kind of lies are we going to get on CNN and Fox and MSNBC? They're all going to lie to us blatantly. And they've got to do it. He who has the gold makes the rules, golden rule. But, what Ed Dames was saying is November, we see it. Now, when we see it, and if we're going to see this object as large as the moon in 2017, then my estimate of it is that this will be the phase when the Planet X system is passing overhead. It's going to pass overhead and we're going to go underneath it. Okay. Kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland. And
I love you.
So what that means is the pole shift is going to come about 11 months or so later when we come back around the sun. And by that time, Nemesis is going to be approaching the ecliptic. And so 2017 is when what we're going to be experiencing will be impact events, steep increases in volcanism. I think it's all eyes on Italy. This is when we're going to have more of a problem with, we want to look at, particularly around the Naples area, that's going to be telling. But we're going to have volcanoes going off. We're going to have ash in the air that's going to block air traffic. When you see on the Pacific Rim, the western edge along the, those states in that area, and we're already seeing ash plumes that are closing air traffic. That's already happening right now.
That's happened
It's happened
a couple of times already.
Yes, yes, and we're just going to see it's going to be a sufficient uptick that it is going to affect the world economy. A lot of people don't recall, but on 3/11, when the earthquake and then tsunami that resulted in the Fukushima incident happened, the country had to shut down its JIT factories, just-in-time manufacturing. And so consequently, other production lines around the world were not able to receive the components they needed to build what they needed, so they had to shut down. So there was a global consequence, because we manufacture products a little bit here, a little bit there, and we snap them together, and it's, this is really what I call a jumbo jet manufacturing world. You have these big 747 cargo liners, and that's it. Load them up, and they haul off and take the parts over, and it cost justifies. And that is going to shut down because of air traffic. Another aspect of that is the balance of power in that region of the world is going to shift completely away from the United States in favor of China, because our military presence there, we project power through naval aviation and land-based bombers, and jet engines and volcanic ash do not live well together. So you cannot operate. That's it. That ash will just tear up the engines. And on the other hand, the Chinese military, their principal naval model is based on the Soviet model, which relies more on submarines and missile cruisers. And this war strategy is invulnerable to the ash. I mean, these ships can, have no problem moving through the ash, and rockets have no problem moving through the ash, ballistic missiles, and so forth. So that'll ground us. And once we're no longer able to project power through the air, then that's it. China will just swoop in and control the region. That will have severe economic impacts for us here. But also our factories are going to shut down. We have more manufacturing in the country, but our jobs are dropping. It used to be Americans, could get a mortgage-paying job without a college degree. Go work in a factory, and you'd have health benefits and good pay and so forth. And either the jobs are outsourced or the manufacturing is being done by robots. And so, but these plants were, what manufacturing we're doing now, we are still dependent on inexpensively mass-produced sub-assemblies coming out of the Orient. So that shuts down. That's a problem. Then also in the Orient, all this volcanic ash is going to destroy the agriculture in that area. You can't grow crops in 6 inches of volcanic ash. over time, nature uses it in a very effective way to make very rich soil. But initially, that's it. Tough darts, farmer. So what happens then is that ships that are coming from overseas to America to bring us all these inexpensive import foods are they're not going to be coming, or those foods are going to stay where they're at because those areas of the world are going to need it. And but then also what will happen is our agribusiness has done a very effective job of destroying family farming in the country to a large extent. And family farmers will, they'll want to support their local communities. Corporations are global. They don't care. They just follow the money. So they could grow a lot of wheat here, but if they can get a better price for it in Japan, that's it. They'll load it up and ship it to Japan, which means you go to the store, price of bread is going to double or triple or quadruple. You're going to find partially empty shelves. All of these, shopping at Walmart is not going to be such a wonderful experience anymore. And so these are the consequences that we're looking coming ahead this year, that we're going to have all these signs, indicators, economic issues. Economic issues are in turn going to drive destabilizing political situations and wars. That's going to happen. But there will come a point where we begin having a sufficient number of collapses, and all it takes is one really good impact event, and that is the world changer. Now, in my book, Being in It for the Species, I go through in very precise detail of an impact event that occurs in the eastern Atlantic, and just short of the continental shelf going into Europe. And so this is a large impactor. It goes down to the subsea floor, and it hits in a place off the coast of Western Europe that has catastrophic events in a series of ways. That impactor, first it hits, and it happens to hit in an area where we have a nexus of subsea fiber optic cables. So that immediately shuts down a good part of global communications right there, just with that impact. But then the impact is going to send tsunamis in two directions. Now, behind it and in front of it, the one in front of it obviously going to be bigger. That's going to hit Northern Africa and Europe, and it'll be devastating. And you're going to have cities inland like Paris and London that are going to flood because the water is going to come back up the rivers. Meanwhile, you're going to have all the ejecta that's going to be falling as far east as Germany, and that's going to be causing innumerable fires and problems. Then you're going to have the rearward tsunami that hits the east coast of the United States from Newfoundland down, and that is going to be a 1-2 punch, actually, because that impact event in that area is going to La Cumbre de Vija, the volcano and on Las Palmas, and the western flank of that volcano back during World War II separated, and so it's really primed for a slide. The flank would slide into the ocean. That would also create a massive tsunami event, and so the shock that would radiate out from the impact event would set that off. So in the United States, we would have a 1-2 punch. We'd have a tsunami coming in from the impact itself, and then about 8 hours later, we would have another tsunami or even sooner, that would be coming in from the collapse of the west flank of that volcano. And the East Coast, we're talking about from Newfoundland to all the way down to Miami, it just is hammered. And, there's going to be huge loss of life with that.
That would really get me. Here I am on the Outer Banks. Well, I'm really the Inner Banks, 50 miles in, but I wouldn't have a rat's chance. I understand that. But just to backtrack just a little bit, so far as 2017 goes, we really need to keep our eyes on bolides coming in. Is that correct, number one? Question, this event that you wrote about in your book that you're telling us about right now, can't give a time. Nobody can give a specific time on any of these things, but was that for 2017 or further in the future?
In the book, I'm talking specifically about the process, the events that you're going to see unfolding, and the timing of it. And so it starts with the event that is going to let us know that we're on that catastrophic timeline will be what I call the winter of ash, because there's going to be so much ash in the sky, it's going to dim the skies, and it's going to give us cold weather. It's going to ground aircraft. Wherever you're at in America, you'll get up in the morning and you go out and there'll be a thin film of volcanic ash on your car. And all of that's going to be coming over from the Pacific Rim. And we're going to have, the thing about the Planet X system is it's pushing stuff in front of it as well as dragging stuff behind it. And one of the things that I explain in my video programs is that you have objects in space, you have asteroids in space that are in benign orbits, okay? No way, no how are they going to cross the Earth. I mean, there's no problem. However, Nemesis is coming through our system like the mother of all cue balls. And it's knocking everything, just think about, you see somebody who's really good at playing pool and they break the rack, and balls going everywhere. Well, that's what's happening. And that's the reason why, I believe we're going to see super bolide events, and then we're going to, all it's going to take is one really good impact event, and that is the massive game changer. And so people are going to, they're going to sit and they're going to say, when am I going to see it with my own two eyes? The right question, the smart question, the intelligent question is, when will I believe that what I am seeing with my own two eyes represents a clear and present danger? Because
and
when you ask that question, you're thinking
people should be prepared in every way.
Yes.
Physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yes.
And when they finally do hear something on the TV,
it's too late.
Exactly. And I talked to a lot of people who've been in awareness for years, decades, many of them since they were children. And they're frustrated. They go, well, I can't afford bullets, beans, and bunkers. So why the hell am I in awareness? And, I'm really trying to talk to them. I mean, that's the reason why I wrote Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, was to help them to become part of communities of 100 or more. And these would be spiritually motivated communities, faith-based. And so that they could take their role of being teachers, mentors, and comforters. The one thing, we have a society that tells us who we are, but what we do not have. We do not have the newest car. We don't have the biggest house in the neighborhood. We don't have this. We don't have that. So what do we got to do? Go into debt, buy something. It's a consumer approach. fill in the gaps of your life. I like to look at what do people have. And if you've been in awareness about what's coming, when it does happen, you're going to have an immensely valuable asset. You're going to be like the eye in the middle of a hurricane. Yeah, it's going to be unsettling, but you're mentally prepared for it. You've already processed through this. And so you know what to do. And meanwhile, you're going to have a swirl of emotions in people all around you. Rage, you know, when I call it the rage. When people finally wake up and understand they have been set up to fail, they're going to be furious. You know, I am a taxpaying citizen. So what? And you know, everyone's gonna, what do we do? And then this is when they're running up and down the aisles, screaming, "Oh my God, they're out of Tabasco. We're all gonna die." All right. But people have been in awareness for many years, decades. They'll be calm. And leader of a community is, you know, they're going to see fear in everybody's eyes, except people have been in awareness. They'll see concern, they'll see worry, but they're not going to see this raging fear that they're going to see everywhere else. And they're going to see somebody that can explain things to them. What people in awareness have to understand is it's not the having of things that's important. It is the knowing of things. And
Very good.
Very good.
this is what they really need to focus on in building their skills. And you know, right now I'm finishing up on my newest book for this year, which will be Survival Wellness Advocacy and the Big Win. And it's actually a supplemental to my Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, and I will be giving the ebook version in Kindle and PDF. I'm going to be giving that for free to the public. The print edition they can buy, but the ebook they can download for free, because I feel
that's great.
Thank you. And well, it's time to do it. It's the reason why, you know, I started Knowledge Mountain Church of Perpetual Genesis, which is an online teaching church, and it's really intended for people in awareness, and it's whatever your core faith is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As long as your faith will allow you to explore other beliefs outside its own dogma and doctrine, then it's something where we can work together. And I, you know, when I started Knowledge Mountain last year, founded it, it was initially went into the same model as you typically see, what I call affective churches. And where you're affective, you're dealing with emotions and feelings, and people want to feel good and feel. And they want to commiserate, they want to talk about their problems and all that. Well, that's go nowhere. Effective, as an effective church, it's like, you know, we'll have one foot nailed to the floor and keep thinking, now, why do I keep seeing the same scenery? And so this year, I've worked with my stewards. We've realigned our church for an effective role, which is goal-driven, mission-driven. And we've cut out all of the socializing. If folks want to do that, they can, you know, socialize with one another. But we're really focused right now on building our programs on an effective, goal-driven basis. And what I'm doing with Survival Wellness Advocacy is we've started in what I call an enterprise guild program. And because guilds are going to be important. We're going to have collapse of governments. And guild is a term that goes back to medieval times, with craftsmen and so forth would get together and form a business association so that they could assure the public of quality, the training program, and also, you know, they were using it to, you know, squeeze the market for themselves a little. But it has really evolved, and today we still have guilds. We just call them different things. We call them associations, fellowships, sororities, fraternities, and so forth. But you still have the guild concept. I went back to guild because what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be going back to medieval times in terms of how things are organized. So the two guilds that we're working on presently is the Survival Wellness Advocate Guild, and this is to help people in awareness who are sensitive. They can see people holistically, to serve in a role as teachers, comforters, and mentors in a community, and they're going to serve in a very important role. Yes, it's important that you have a guy that knows how to, build a bunker, but you can go out and put all your resources into building a wonderful bunker, and if some schmuck doesn't want to wash his hands before he goes to work in the soup kitchen, and one little fleck of feces on his finger, next thing you know, half the people are dying of cholera. So, your survival wellness advocate is going to be focusing on issues of hygiene and wellness. They don't cure anything, they help. The doctors do the curing. The advocates are, keeping people well so that you're not draining your medical resources and cutting your productivity. And then the other guild is what I call Radio Free Earth, because we're going to have a period where our communications are just going to grind to a halt and things are going to go dark. And at that point, what you're really going to have are going to be a patchwork quilt of ham radio operators doing point-to-point or station-to-station communications. And with Radio Free Earth, it's how do we take and, come back and restore, a trusted, viable network of communications, because you're going to have like FCC and ARRL, Amateur Radio Relay League, which is a wonderful organization. I belong to it, and I am also in the ARES program, all right, and that's emergency radio. But these programs are going to flounder because ARRL does not have a Planet X strategy. They're good at dealing with disasters, but more on a regional scope where, you're helping. For example, during Katrina, a lot of ARRL people, hams, everything went dark. People lost everything, radio, cell, it all went dead. And they loaded up their radios and batteries and supplies into their pickup trucks, and they all headed down to the area, and they restored communications. They were really helping, so that the relief efforts, they could relay messages, who needed what and where, relaying messages so that, from family members, we survived, we're okay, don't worry about us. They were doing that, did a wonderful job in Katrina. So, that is what the Radio Free Earth Guild is about. And also then the model of self-sufficiency knowledge, sharing knowledge with people to help them get through. That's the 3 precepts of our church. That's it. If you want to know what are we about, our 3 precepts are self-sufficiency knowledge, hope for the future, and knowing you're not alone. That's it.
Great.
That's
great.
great.
I have one quick.
I've had you a long time. I haven't let you go.
Okay.
But Planet 9, do you think that, I'm not saying there's not another planet that they can call Planet 9, but to me it seems like it's kind of a distraction from Planet X. What's your input on that?
Look, Planet 9 is, this was really a knee-jerk response. What happened was there were, I believe it was down in Chile, some astronomers doing deep space work on a very large telescope array determined that they had found possible evidence of a cold, in other words, a very old brown dwarf star at the outer region of our system, which then raised you know, the concept, are we in a binary or perhaps even a trinary system? Because 90% of the solar systems in our galaxy have multiple suns, you know, and for us to say we're in that 10% group, it's like, fine, explain to me precession of the equinoxes, where everybody knows, you know, the old song, the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius. Well, we're going into the age of Aquarius, but we're going backwards, okay? And why do we have to have a constant where we're constantly adjusting for things? And why do we have a tilted orbit? And why this and why that? You keep asking questions, because if we were just a single sun solar system, everything would be nice and stable. We're not. We're in a multiple sun system. And so this was, I documented this extensively on Yowza.com, and this was the guy, the Pluto killer, and this was also promulgated by the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, and that guy's a Luciferian piece of work. So, you know, the whole Planet 9 thing was rushed to, you know, it was a rush to, because what they did was these astronomers who published white papers on their findings had to retract their findings because they came under so much intense political pressure from the US. And so to fill that vacuum, they brought out Mike Brown with this Planet 9 thing. And it wasn't warmly embraced like everybody would expect. There were Italian astronomers that looked at that and they said, well, you know, if he's saying it exists, there's half of his search area is irrelevant. So they immediately, and you know, you got to say, well, okay, so fine, you know, they're doing that, they're working the problem. Half of your search area is irrelevant. I mean, wouldn't you deal with that before you publish or go to market or make an announcement? All right, but if you're rushing with an idea that's sitting on the shelf kind of half cooked and somebody says, man, we got to do something. So Planet 9, but it's the same kind of disinformation as Gil Broussard, Planet 7X. All right, and I did a video on Broussard. The guy's a shuckster, and you know, he said during previous flyby that in this 360-year orbit at Planet X, or Planet 7X as he calls it, because he says it's 7 times larger than the sun, although nobody's ever observed it. So he's guesstimating. And he said it passed between the Earth and the moon, okay? And if that happened 360 years ago, I think there's a few Europeans that might have noticed that, you know, said something. I think at least there would be a lot of folklore about the whole planet going to hell in a handbasket. So, you know, you get this Planet 9, Planet 7X, and all this is just to muddle up the search engine listings, which are, you know, if you type in Planet X or Nibiru, you're not going to find me anymore on Google or the search engines. You know, me and along with some of the other researchers that were consistently in the search engine rankings, we've just disappeared. And you may find us 4, 5, 6 pages deep in the search. So that's part of the suppression. That's something that just happened in the last quarter. So, you know, it's distraction. Again, you know, if people can't get a clean beat on it, all right, then
all right. Well, you know what? I'm going to try to sum this up, and you come back and correct anything I get wrong. Okay? Okay, here we go. All right. One of the biggest things right now, so far as this system and we're concerned, is to watch for bolide fireball events this quarter of 2017. Also, so far as maybe seeing this planet may occur in November of this year, doesn't mean the total big boom event will happen. It would be the following year. Also, Not saying there's not a planet 9. There's a zillion planets out there we don't know about. But planet 9 kind of conveniently fits in a distraction to take away from this planet system that's headed towards us. Nobody's got wrote down in stone because nobody has all the actual information to get all the calculations on this Nibiru planet. Nobody can give you an exact time it's coming in. Lord knows I've tried. I've tried everything. Every time I take a picture and I send it to NASA and the European Space Agency and all those good boob-gadoog peoples, and they do their calculations. Well, we can't give you a coordinates. Well, I know damn well you can. Excuse me. You know? They're not going to tell you the truth. And if you ever hear one word about anything that you happen to see unusual sitting in the sky on mainstream media, no, it's too late. You need to get in your car, go get your food, do whatever you got to do, because that's all you're going to be able to do therefore after. And pretty soon you're not going to be able to do that. So you can stop me anytime, Marshall. I'm just trying to wrap this up, okay?
Hey, Jay, you're on a roll.
There is one more thing I had on my mind today. I'm going to go back a few years because this really got me. As you can see, I have many telescopes from big to small to every kind. I study the sky a lot when I'm able. And I want to go back a few years to Comet Ison. But to me, okay, you know all of the big boo, 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 as you call that come out about Comet Ison, and oh, it's going to be this freaking big, and we're going to see this, and we're going to see that. Okay, well,
Are you talking about Comet Isn't?
no, Ison, and it's like, to me, you were talking about things that happen ahead of time. To me, now I'm just saying this is to me only, okay? But to me, that was some kind of something, and I'll explain why I think this way. I could see it when it was way out in space. With my big telescope, I could see it and stuff. But the day that it was supposed to get closest to perihelion, I went out. Everything's calm. I set up, and it wasn't just regular wind. It was freaking solar wind, Marshall. Straight line, solar wind. Wasn't down, just solar wind. Turned my telescope over. Did it twice. I wasn't supposed to look at it. Now, if this thing was really as big as it was supposed to have been, I know NASA's never a straight tale, but I know good and well they would have wanted a picture of it. Okay? They tried. They tried. They went up on their plane, that's the observatory. And this one scientist, she's a lady, I can't think of her name right now. Oh, we've got it. She turns around and goes back. Boop, it's gone. And I know what happened to me. I'm just wondering if that was kind of something telling us to get right for what's coming.
I think Comet Ison was an awareness event that the Ison catastrophe that was predicted. I did a lot of reporting on that back then, and I tried to balance it where 50% nothing's going to happen, 25% something little happen, and then 25% something substantial. And I really felt that was a way to bridge it for people away from this absolute we're all going to die thing. And one of the things that happens is the elites are always wanting to run us down rabbit holes to exhaust our attention. And so they create what I've documented and call expectation stampedes. And so you're going to have an event. They build expectations around it, knowing that it'll be a non-event. And then the non-event occurs and everybody goes, man, I was stupid for thinking about that. And, you know, and then get humiliated. And you got everybody, yeah, there you go again. You know, all this mockery and ridicule. So this is, you have real events and you have real concerns, and they're justifiable. But we are manipulated and programmed by the elites through the media. And like I said, they create these expectation events, and just like lemmings, they lead us right off a cliff into the sea. And then what happens? Next time around, you know, you're going, oh man, I really got, you know, I got took to the cleaners on that one. I don't know if I want to do this again. And I'm going to go to the mall. I'm going to go shopping. And that's what they're doing. So you have to understand that is happening concurrently with a real event. All right. And, you know, this is the whole thing of it, Jay, as SIP, shelter in place, which means stay where you are and die. Okay? The message to you, Jay, living where you are, is stay on the banks, shelter in place. How long can you tread water, dear? Okay? And so that's the whole thing. Vast majority of humanity lives along the coastline. And when you look at how people are being programmed with neuro-linguistic programming, in these dense population coastal areas, the programming is heavier. You know, the people who are in awareness tend to be in the more survivable areas. They're in the flyover states. Okay. People living along the, you know, coastlines. Okay. And
well, honey, I'm telling everybody
they get just taken out. Huh?
I'm telling everybody about.
I tell all my neighbors. That's what I'm trying to keep up on all this.
So I know when it's time to go somewhere.
Well, if you've been telling all your friends and neighbors, how many Christmas cards did you get last year?
Well,
believe it or not, all of my neighbors, I live in a little secluded. It's really a little island. Probably 50 houses in the whole settlement
on this little place of land, and everybody's surrounded by water all the way around us. You can see the water out of any window in my house. And I used to live on the ocean, and I moved in 50 miles thinking I was doing something. Well, guess what? But back to my neighbors, they do not think I'm crazy. They have seen some things that I've talked about happen. They've seen it with their own eyes. Maybe little small things like you were talking about, but they're happening. They're happening. And they're so I don't know what they're going to do. My question is, I don't know. My whole state will be just about gone, won't it, Marshall? North Carolina. How much of North Carolina will be left?
Actually, I think one of the most survivable areas of the country is north of Asheville.
Tennessee. So in other words, my state's doing. That's what I'm telling you. Okay, thank you. Well, that's good to know. I'm glad at least to know that.
You know, it's
all right.
The thing is, if you're looking for the harbinger signs, you can do something about it. All right. And if you're going, la 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 la, I'm not, I'm not looking, I'm not looking, then, there it is. But if you're looking for the harbinger signs, you're going to have a brief window of opportunity to bust a move, get to safety, while everybody else is sitting there going, well, let's see what they say on CNN. The CNN's going to say shelter in place, because that's the elites want them to do. Stay where you're at and die. Okay?
Yeah.
So
I'm a little bit smarter now.
Use your noodle.
Gotcha. Well, I'm a little bit smarter than have hurricanes around here. It really doesn't matter where we go in our state. If it's a big enough hurricane, it all floods anyway, except the mountains. Okay, Asheville, west of the Blue Ridge, that's the only part don't flood. Okay, so it's like the water part's one thing, but yeah, I look for signs every day. I watch the sky every day. I keep up on the volcanoes every day, the earthquakes every day, the meteors I already do all this stuff, Marshall, every day at some point of the day of my life. 7 days a week. Pretty dedicated. That's why I wanted you on here. And I wanted you to like lay it all out. You've talked to more people, more people, you know a whole lot more stuff. You can tell us things we need to know. And right now, for the first quarter of this year, what we really need to watch out for is bolides, correct? All right, Marshall. On that note, I want to tell everybody, and go over to yowza.com. You can see all of Marshall's videos. You can purchase his books if you want. You can see all the information he's got up there for you. That's yowza.com. Check him out. It's been a year since I had Marshall on here with me. Marshall, it may not be an entire year again before I call you, because if some of this stuff starts cooking up, buddy, I'm going to be on the horn, okay? And I want you to come back.
I'll be there.
Thank you so much, Marshall, for taking the time to be with us today. We've been on here like almost 2 hours, and I wasn't planning on taking up that much of your day, but thank you so very much. I'm sure my viewers thank you so much. We love you, Marshall. Take care. God bless, and keep your eyes on the sky and everything around you. Thank you, Marshall. You have a good day.